The gray dawn broke over Minas Tirith as King Elisar paced the tower of Ecthelion, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. Before him upon the marble table lay 7 ancient tomes, their leather bindings cracked with age, and beside them gleamed the Palantír of Anor, its surface swirling with misty light. "My lord," came the voice of Prince Imrahil from the doorway. "The messenger from Dol Amroth brings urgent tidings." Aragorn turned, his gray eyes troubled. "Speak." "Aight. Ships bearing black sails have been sighted near the mouths of Anduin. They fly no banner we recognize, yet our fishermen speak of lights beneath the wave, unnatural lights that pulse like heartbeats in the deep." The king approached the Palantír, placing his palms upon its cool surface. The seeing stone responded to his touch, revealing visions of dark waters where shadows moved with purpose beneath the wave. In the depths, he glimpsed something that made his blood run cold, the unmistakable glimmer of another Palantír, one that should have been lost forever. "The Palantír of Osgiliath," Aragorn whispered, "but it was cast into Anduin during the War of the Ring." "My lord?" Imrahil stepped forward, concern etched upon his noble features. "Ready my fastest ship, and gather the rangers. We sail for the mouths of Anduin at first light. Send word to Lord Gimli at Aglarond, and to King Thranduil in the woodland realm. If what I suspect is true, we shall have need of all our allies." Aragorn's voice carried the weight of kingship and the memory of past perils. The Palantír of Osgiliath was not lost, it was taken. And now it seems someone seeks to use it from the depths of the sea itself. 3 leagues south of Pelargir, the royal vessel Elendil's Hope cut through waters that grew stranger with each passing hour. The sea, normally a deep blue-green, had taken on an oily blackness that seemed to swallow the sunlight. Captain Thorongil, named for the king's former alias, stood at the prow, his weathered face grim. "Your Majesty," he called to Aragorn, who stood studying charts with Prince Imrahil. "The water, it moves wrong. See how it swirls, yet there be no current nor wind to stir it so." Below the surface, phosphorescent trails spiraled in patterns too deliberate to be natural. The rangers who accompanied the king muttered prayers to the valor, hands never straying far from their sword hilts. "There!" cried Baragon from the crow's nest. 2 points off the starboard bow. Rising from the black waters came shapes that defied easy description. Vessels of a sort, but wrought of coral and bone, their hulls gleaming with bioluminescent pattern. Upon their decks stood figures in flowing robe that seemed woven from seaweed and shadow. "Seaward Númenórean," breathed Imrahil, "but that cannot be. The downfall was 3,000 years past." Aragorn gripped Anduril's hilt as one of the strange vessels approached. Its occupants were tall and pale, with eyes like tide pools and hair that moved as if still underwater. Their leader, adorned with a crown of black pearls, raised a conch shell to his lips and blew a note that seemed to echo from the very depths of the earth. "Heir of Isildur," the figure called across the waves, his voice carrying unnaturally over the water. "I am Nimruzir, Lord of the Sunken City. We would speak with thee of the seeing stone that lies in our keeping." "The Palantír of Osgiliath belongs not in the depths," Aragorn replied, his voice carrying the authority of kingship. "By what right do you claim it?" Nimruzir's laughter was like the crash of waves on shingle. "By right of salvage, and by older claims than thy line can boast. Come, son of Arathorn, come to Armenelos beneath the wave, and learn of the true fate of Númenor's children." Teat. The journey to the underwater city required a magic beyond the understanding of mortal men. Nimruzir's servants brought forth shells that, when held to the lips, allowed breathing beneath the wave. With grave misgiving, but pressed by necessity, Aragorn and 3 of his rangers accepted the Sea Lord's invitation, leaving Prince Imrahil to guard the ship above. Down through fathoms of increasingly strange water, they descended, following globes of cold fire that lit their path. The pressure should have crushed them, yet the shell's magic held. Schools of fish with too many eyes watched their passage, and things that might once have been whales sang mournful songs in the deep. Then, through the murky water, the lights of Armenelos beneath the waves became visible. The city was a marvel and a horror in equal measure. Towers that had once scraped the sky of Numenor now rose from abyssal plains, their white stone turned green with age and coral growth. Streets ran with bioluminescent currents instead of lamps, and the people, for people they still were, after a fashion, moved through the water as easily as men walk through air. In the great palace at the city's heart, Nimruzir led them to a vast chamber where the Palantír of Osgiliath rested upon a throne of pearl and bone. But it was not as Aragorn remembered it from the ancient record. The seeing stone pulsed with a sickly green light, and within its depths swam shapes that hurt the mind to perceive. "Behold," said Nimruzir, his court of drowned nobles arranging themselves in a circle about the throne, "the stone of seeing as it was meant to be, not a tool, the faithful of Numenor, but a window to realms beyond Middle-earth itself. Through its depths we have gazed upon the void, and the void has gazed back." "You speak madness," Aragorn said, though dread grew in his heart. The Palantíri were made by the elves of Valinor for communication across great distance. Were they? Nimruzir smiled, revealing teeth like those of a shark. Or were they something else entirely? Keys to doors that should remain forever locked. "Tell me, King of Gondor, when last you looked into a Palantír, what dreams came to you in the dark of night?" Aragorn's hand tightened on Andúril's hilt as he remembered the troubling visions that had plagued him since using the Palantír of Anor. Dreams of vast spaces between the stars, of intelligences ancient and hungry, of whispers in languages that predated the music of creation itself. In chambers carved from living coral, Nimruzir told his tale, while phosphorescent servants brought forth foods that had never known the sun's touch. Aragorn and his rangers ate little, their attention fixed on their host's words. "Know this, heir of Isildur, Numenor's fall was not mere hubris against the Valar. Ar-Pharazôn, the Golden, discovered something in the depths of the sea during his conquests, something that the elves had hidden from mortal knowledge. The true nature of the Palantíri was revealed to him in a vision sent by older powers than Eru Ilúvatar." The Sea Lord gestured to carvings upon the chamber walls, depicting scenes that made the rangers cross themselves. Ships sailing not upon water but through spaces between stars, and crews that changed as they traveled, becoming things of tentacle and scale. The downfall came not as punishment for challenging Valinor, but as a desperate act to prevent something far worse. "When the seas swallowed our island, many of my people learned to breathe water as easily as air. We became the keepers of the deep Palantír, guardians against the time when its true purpose would be needed." "And what purpose is that?" Aragorn demanded, Nimruzir's tide pool eyes fixed upon the king, to call back those who were cast into the void at the world's beginning. "The nameless things that Gandalf spoke of in Moria are but the least of what stirs beyond the circles of the world. Soon, the stars will be right, and the gates will open. When that time comes, only one who carries the blood of both Numenor and Gondor can wield the deep Palantír to either welcome our master or attempt to bar the way." From the corners of the chamber came sounds that were not quite laughter and not quite weeping, the voices of the drowned nobility who had listened to these words for 3,000 years. "You offer me a choice that is no choice," Aragorn said. "Madness or a hopeless battle against forces beyond comprehension. Not hopeless," whispered a new voice. From the shadows stepped a figure that made even the rangers gasp in recognition. Tall and gray-clad, with a staff that gleamed with silver light, though his robes dripped with seawater. "Gandalf?" Aragorn breathed. "But you sailed into the west." The figure smiled sadly. "I am not he whom you knew, friend Aragorn. I am Gandalf the Drowned, who fell into the abyss during our battle on the bridge of Khazad-dûm, and learned truths too terrible for the living world to bear." The rangers stepped back in terror, but Aragorn stood his ground, though his hand remained upon Andúril's hilt. This Gandalf bore the wounds of his fall, His gray robes were tattered and moved with their own current, and his staff was now coral white rather than its former hue. "You are not Gandalf," the king said with certainty. "He returned to us reborn and sailed into the west with the ring-bearer. What manner of phantasm are you?" The drowned wizard's laughter echoed strangely in the underwater chamber. "I am what remains when hope is stripped away, when the veils of kindly lies are torn aside. Yes, Gandalf the Grey fell at Khazad-dûm, and yes, he returned as Gandalf the White. But something else fell that day as well, the shadow of doubt, the whisper of despair that even the Astari carry. I am that shadow given form by the deep Palantir's power." Nimruzur bowed low before the apparition. "The Keeper of Shadows speaks truth, King of Gondor. Through him, we have learned that the Valar themselves know what comes. Why else would they call the ring-bearers into the west? Why else would Gandalf the White depart from Middle-earth just when these signs begin to manifest?" "You speak lies wrapped in half-truths," Aragorn replied, but doubt crept into his voice. The dream, the strange tides, the unnatural behavior of sea creatures reported by fishermen all pointed to some disturbance in the natural order. The shadow Gandalf approached the throne where the corrupted Palantír pulsed with its sickly light. "Look into the stone, Elisar. See what I have seen in the depths beyond depths. The stars wheel toward an alignment that comes but once in each age of the world. Already, the barriers weaken. In the deepest trenches of the sea, things stir that have slept since the foundation of Arda." Against his better judgment, Aragorn found himself drawn toward the seeing stone. Its surface showed not the familiar swirl of mist and starlight, but depths that seemed to extend infinitely downward, where geometries impossible in the waking world formed and reformed with nauseating regularity. "The Valar cast the nameless things into outer darkness," the drowned wizard continued, "but they did not destroy them. Now, those barriers fail, and from the spaces between stars, our ancient enemies return. The deep Palantír is both key and lock. It can open the way for their return, or it can be used to strengthen the barriers, though at great cost." "What cost?" Aragorn asked, though he feared the answer. "The life of one who carries the blood of Númenor and the authority of Gondor's crown, a willing sacrifice to seal the gates for another age of the world." Erit, in the depths of Armenelos beneath the waves, time seemed suspended. Phosphorescent currents marked the hours, and the drowned court waited in silence as Aragorn contemplated the choice laid before him. His rangers stood ready, hands on sword hilts. But what use were mortal weapons against the powers that stirred in the deep? "Tell me more of these barriers," the king commanded. "If the Valar themselves set them in place, why do they weaken now?" The shadow Gandalf moved through the water with unnatural grace, approaching ancient charts carved into the chamber walls. Because the world changes, and the barriers were keyed to the world as it was. When the Ring of Power was destroyed, when Sauron fell and the dominion of men began, the fundamental harmony of Arda shifted, the music changed, and the walls built of the old music cannot hold. Nimruzur gestured to his drowned courtier, who began to sing in voices that carried both above and below the water. Their song was hauntingly beautiful, yet wrong in ways that made the mind recoil. "We have kept vigil for 3,000 years, learning the deep song, preparing for this time. But we cannot work the final binding. That requires one who still draws breath of air, who stands between the sunlit lands and the abyss." "And if I refuse?" Aragorn asked. The deep Palantír pulsed brighter, and in its depths, visions formed of coastal cities swallowed by impossible tides, of the Shire overrun by things that had never known the sun, of Minas Tirith's white walls cracked and blackened by the touch of entities from beyond the world's borders. "Then the choice passes to another," the shadow Gandalf replied. "Your heir, perhaps, or another of Númenor's line. The blood debt must be paid, whether in this generation or the next. but each delay weakens the barriers further. What might be sealed now with one life may require thousands later. One of the rangers, Damrod of Ithilien, stepped forward. "My lord, this reeks of sorcery and deceit. How can we trust the word of drowned men and phantom? Perhaps we should return to the surface and seek counsel from those who serve the light." "There is no time," Nimruzir said, his pearl crown glinting in the strange light. "Already the stars wheel toward conjunction. In 7 days, when Arundel's star stands at zenith above the mouths of Anduin, the barriers will be weakest. Then the ritual can be performed, or the entities beyond will find their own way through." Aragorn studied the corrupted Palantír, noting how its light pulsed in rhythm with his own heartbeat. Some connection had already been forged, he realized. The moment he had looked into the stone above Minas Tirith, he had been marked as its potential wielder. "Show me the ritual," he said at last. "If I am to make this choice, I would know exactly what is required." The drowned nobles led them deeper into the city, to a vast amphitheater where the architecture hurt the eyes to look upon directly. Pillars spiraled upward in impossible helixes, and the floor was inscribed with symbols that seemed to shift when viewed peripherally. At the center lay a pool of water so still it reflected not the chamber above, but star patterns from some other sky entirely. "Here," Nimruzir intoned, "where the deep Palantír can touch both the depths of the sea and the depths of space itself, the ritual must be performed. The one who carries the blood rite must enter the pool while the star conjunction holds, bearing the seeing stone. As the barriers between worlds grow thin, he must look into the stone and hold fast to his purpose, while the entities beyond attempt to break his will." The Shadow Gandalf added his voice to the explanation. "The ritual will show you truths that mortal minds were never meant to grasp. You will see the true shape of reality, the actual structure that underlies the music of creation. Most who look upon such things become lost in madness, but one who succeeds in maintaining his sense of self can use that knowledge to reinforce the cosmic barrier at the cost of his life." Damrod said grimly. "All life ends," the drowned wizard replied. "The question is whether it ends with meaning. Kings are remembered not for the length of their reign, but for the choices they make in the moment of greatest need." Aragorn walked to the edge of the impossible pool, seeing his reflection waver and change, sometimes showing him crowned and living, sometimes showing a corpse with coral growing from its eye sockets. "Tell me true, is there no other way?" "There is always another way," said a new voice from the shadows of the amphitheater, "though it may not be the one you would choose." The assembled company turned to see a figure approaching, tall, fair of face, with silver hair and eyes like chips of starlight. He wore robes that seemed cut from the night sky itself, and power radiated from him like heat from a forge. "Lord Elrond," Aragorn breathed, "but you too sailed into the west." The Elf Lord smiled sadly. "Did I? Or did part of me remain? Bound to Middle-earth by concern for those I left behind. I am what lingers when love refuses to let go entirely, an echo with just enough substance to offer counsel in the darkest hour." Nimruzir and his court bowed low, but the Shadow Gandalf remained standing, his grip tightening on his coral staff. "The echo of Elrond speaks of alternatives that do not exist. The mathematics of the barriers are absolute. Mathematic," Elrond mused, "are a mortal concept. What seems absolute from one perspective may be merely contingent from another. Tell me, King of Gondor, have you considered that the entities beyond the barriers might not be evil in any sense you would recognize? That they might simply be different?" In a side chamber away from the drowned court's hearing, Elrond's echo spoke privily with Aragorn and his ranger. Here, away from the deep Palantír's influence, the air seemed cleaner somehow, though they still breathed water as easily as air. "The choice you have been given is real," Elrond said, "but it is not the only choice. Nimruzir and his people have spent 3,000 years in the depths, and their perspectives have shifted. They see the entities beyond the barriers as cosmic threats. But what if they are simply trying to return to a reality from which they were unjustly exiled? Damrod frowned. My lord Elrond, surely you do not counsel treating with beings that would destroy Middle-earth. Would they destroy it, or transform it into something unrecognizable? The Valar themselves transformed Arda when they drew it from the void. Change is not inherently evil, though it may be unwelcome to those who cherish what currently exists. Aragorn considered this. What do you counsel then? That I allow these entities to return unchallenged? I counsel that you speak with them first, before choosing between sacrifice and submission. The deep Palantír can serve as a means of communication as well as a gateway. Perhaps there is a middle path, one that preserves what can be preserved while allowing for necessary change. The echo gestured toward the main chamber where the seeing stone pulsed with its alien light. But know this. Once you open communication with entities beyond the cosmic barrier, you will be changed by the contact. Your mind will expand to encompass concepts that mortal understanding was never designed to hold. Whether you emerge from such contact still recognizably yourself, that I cannot foresee. And if they prove hostile to any negotiation, then the ritual of sacrifice remains available to you. But if there is a chance for a solution that does not require your death, surely it is worth attempting. One of the rangers, Mablung of Henneth Anun, spoke up. My lord, this feels like a trap within a trap. First, we were offered the choice between death and destruction. Now we are offered a third path that might be worse than either. Elrond's echo smiled with infinite sadness. All choices in the deep places of the world carry such risk, Mablung. But courage is not the absence of fear. It is acting in spite of fear. And wisdom is not the certainty of right action, but the willingness to choose based on incomplete knowledge when choice cannot be delayed. In the main chamber, they could hear the drowned court beginning some manner of preparation, their alien voices rising and falling in harmonies that made the water itself vibrate. Time was running short, and whatever decision Aragorn made would shape not just his own fate, but the fate of all who dwelt beneath the sky. As the star conjunction approached its zenith, Aragorn made his choice. Rather than immediately accepting the ritual of sacrifice or fleeing to the surface, he would attempt to communicate with the entities beyond the barrier. The drowned court watched in fascination as he approached the deep Palantír. Elrond's echo beside him and the shadow Gandalf scowling from the chamber's edge. If I am to be changed by this contact, Aragorn said, then let me first speak as King of Gondor, heir of Isildur, and guardian of the free peoples of Middle-earth. If there must be negotiation, let it be between equals. He placed his hands upon the corrupted seeing stone, and immediately the chamber around him seemed to dissolve. He found himself standing not underwater, but in a vast space between stars, where geometries folded in upon themselves and colors existed that had no names in any earthly language. Before him, materialized presences so alien that his mind could barely process their existence. Entities of pure thought and cosmic force, older than the creation of Arda itself. Why do you resist our return? The communication came not as words, but as concepts impressed directly upon his consciousness. We were part of the first music. We sang harmonies in the great theme before the discord of Melkor corrupted the song. Because your return would unmake the world as we know it, Aragorn replied, somehow finding voice in that space between spaces. All that we have built, all that we love, would be destroyed. Destroyed or transformed into something greater. Your music is beautiful, little king, but it is incomplete. We would add our voices to the song, create harmonies beyond your current imagination. Images flooded Aragorn's mind. Visions of Middle-earth transformed, where the boundaries between matter and spirit were fluid, where time moved in spirals rather than straight line, where death was merely another form of existence, and mortals could speak directly with the forces that shaped reality. It was beautiful and terrible in equal measure, and those who cannot adapt to such transformation, they would be preserved, as fossils are preserved in stone, as memories are preserved in mind. Nothing would be lost, only transcended. Aragorn realized that from the entity's perspective, this was mercy. They genuinely believed they were offering a gift to the mortal world, but preservation as a fossil was not the same as continued life, and transcendence imposed without consent was its own form of tyranny. You hesitate. We understand. Your attachment to current forms is natural, but consider, what is the alternative? Your world already changes. Your people age and die. Your civilizations rise and fall. We offer permanence. Permanence without growth, without choice. Aragorn countered. You would make us perfect by making us static. The cosmic entity's response carried something like amusement. Static? Observe. In the space between stars, the entities showed Aragorn visions of other worlds where they had been accepted rather than banished. He saw realms where former mortals moved through dimensions of existence that spanned eons, where death had been conquered not through preservation of the body, but through expansion of consciousness beyond the need for physical form. Cities existed that were built not of stone and timber, but of crystallized thought and living mathematics. Your elves already understand part of this truth. The entities communicated. They fade from your world, not through weakness, but through transcendence. The undying lands are merely the first step toward existence beyond form. But the choice should remain, Aragorn insisted. Those who wish to transcend should be free to do so. But those who wish to live their mortal lives in the forms they know should not be forced to change. The cosmic presences considered this, and for a moment that lasted eons in that timeless space, they debated among themselves in harmonies that would have shattered mortal minds. When they turned their attention back to Aragorn, their communication carried a new tone. An interesting proposal, but the barriers between worlds cannot remain as they are. They weaken with each passing age. If we do not return now, we will be forced to break through later, and the resulting chaos would destroy much that could otherwise be preserved. Then, let us find another solution. Remake the barriers to allow passage for those who choose transcendent, while protecting those who do not. Make the boundary permeable rather than absolute, possible. But the mathematics of such a working would require. The communication stopped abruptly. Through the deep Palantir's connection, Aragorn sensed something that sent ice through his spiritual form. Another presence, vast and malevolent, that had been listening to their exchange. This was no cosmic entity seeking return, but something else entirely. Something that fed on chaos and destruction. The deceiver stirs, the entities warned. We are not the only ones who seek to cross the barrier. There are others who would use our return as cover for their own purposes. Purposes that truly would mean the end of all things. In the depths of our Menelaus beneath the waves, alarms began to sound, not with horns or bells, but with changes in the water's temperature and pressure that spoke of approaching danger. The drowned court scattered like startled fish, and even Nimruzir's composure cracked. "It comes," the Sea Lord whispered. "The true enemy stirs in the deepest trenches. Our communication has awakened it from its slumber." The Shadow Gandalf raised his coral staff, power gathering around him like a whirlpool. Aragorn must complete the ritual now. Before, his words were cut off as something vast pressed against the city's boundary, a presence that made the cosmic entities seem small by comparison. A hunger that had waited in the deepest darkness since the world's foundation. Through the Palantír, Aragorn felt that malevolent attention turn toward him, and he knew with terrible certainty that all their planning had been anticipated, that every choice they might make had been foreseen by an intelligence older and more cunning than any they had imagined. The real enemy had never been the cosmic entities at all. The revelation struck Aragorn like a physical blow. Everything, the approach of the drowned fleet, Nimruzir's offer, even the cosmic entity's desire to return, had been orchestrated by something far more ancient and malevolent. Through the deep Palantir's connection, he sensed its true nature. Not one of the entities cast beyond the barriers by the Veiler, but something that had been imprisoned within the foundations of Arda itself, bound there since the world's creation. The Nameless One stirs, the cosmic entities warned, their communication urgent now. We sought to return not to transform your world, but to help defend it. The true prison was never the barriers between worlds. It was the world itself. Middle-earth is the lock, and the Nameless One seeks the key to break free. In Armenelos beneath the waves, the water itself began to change, becoming thick and oily, tasting of copper and despair. The drowned nobles cowered as their beautiful city started to crack and crumble, unable to withstand the pressure of what rose from beneath. The deep Palantír, Nimruzer gasped, his pearl crown dissolving in the corrupted water. It was never meant to call the cosmic entities. It was meant to wake the Nameless One. We have been its servants all along, believing ourselves guardians while actually serving as its jailers and unwitting liberators. Yurti, the Shadow Gandalf's form began to waver and dissipate, his coral staff cracking. "I am not even Gandalf's shadow," he admitted, as his false nature was revealed. "I am a thought form created by the Nameless One, designed to guide you to this moment." The ritual of sacrifice was never meant to strengthen barrier. It was meant to weaken the final seal that holds the true enemy bound. Through the Palantír, Aragorn felt the nameless hunger pressing upward through layers of reality, seeking to break free from its prison at the world's core. He understood now why the elves had departed Middle-earth, why Gandalf had sailed into the west. They had sensed this approaching crisis and removed themselves so as not to be consumed or corrupted when the final battle began. But Elrond's echo remained true, stepping forward as the chamber continued to crumble around them. "The choice still exists, Elisar. The cosmic entities spoke truth. They can help remake the barriers, but not as they were before. The prison must be transformed into something stronger, and that transformation requires the willing sacrifice of one who embodies the music of creation itself." Aragorn finished, finally understanding, not death, but transformation. The king must become the lock. Above them, Prince Imrahil's voice echoed down through fathoms of water as he realized his king was not returning. The royal fleet had engaged the false drowned ships, only to discover they were fighting projection, phantoms created to lure the king beneath the wave. The real battle was here, in the depths, between forces that predated the existence of the sun and moon. "Quickly!" urged the cosmic entities. "The final seal weakens. If the Nameless One breaks free, it will devour first Middle-earth, then the undying lands, then all of creation until only hunger remains." Aragorn looked one last time upon his rangers, loyal Damrod and Mablung, who had followed him into the depths, knowing they might never see sunlight again. "Tell my people that their king chose the path of duty. Tell them that Middle-earth endured." He stepped into the impossible pool at the amphitheater's center, still holding the deep Palantír, and felt the cosmic forces gathering around him like a storm. As Aragorn sank into the pool that reflected alien stars, the nameless hunger made its final assault on the bonds that held it. Reality itself began to unravel around the edges, and the surviving rangers felt their memories of the sunlit world growing dim and uncertain. But the cosmic entities were ready. Drawing power from sources beyond the physical universe, they began to weave new patterns around Aragorn's willing spirit, transforming him from mortal king into something far greater and far stranger. His consciousness expanded to encompass not just his own experience, but the experiences of all who had ever lived in Middle-earth. Every hobbit who had tended a garden, every elf who had sung to the stars, every dwarf who had shaped stone with loving care. He became the lock, but also the key, a living seal that could adapt and grow stronger rather than simply enduring until it broke. The deep Palantír merged with his transformed essence, becoming not a seeing stone, but a nexus where all the music of creation could be harmonized and focused. The nameless hunger struck against this new barrier and found itself not merely blocked, but actively opposed by a will that drew strength from every act of love and creation that had ever occurred in Middle-earth. For the first time since the world's foundation, it encountered something that could match its hunger with an equal and opposite force, the combined determination of all free people to preserve what they held dear. Impossible! The Nameless One raged. I am entropy itself. I am the ending of all things. Nothing can oppose the final darkness. You are not endings, Aragorn replied, his voice now carrying harmonies that spanned dimensions. You are merely another beginning, another movement in the great music. And every song must have its rests and pauses, its moments of silence between the notes. The battle that followed took place on levels of reality that mortal minds could not grasp, but its effects rippled across Middle-earth. In the Shire, flowers bloomed out of season as hope renewed itself. In Rohan, horses ran faster, and their riders sang louder. In the halls of Erebor, the forges burned brighter, as dwarf smiths felt their craft elevated to new heights of artistry. When the battle ended, the nameless hunger had not been destroyed. It could not be destroyed, being as fundamental a force as gravity or time, but it had been transformed, its endless appetite channeled into something creative rather than destructive. Where once it had sought to devour all existence, now it became the force that drove growth and change, the divine discontent that pushed mortals to build better worlds and reach for greater heights. In the depths where Armenelos beneath the waves had stood, a new city took shape, neither fully of water nor of air, but existing in both states simultaneously. Here, those who chose transcendence could dwell while still maintaining connection to the mortal world above. The cosmic entities took up residence as guardians and teachers, no longer seeking to impose change, but offering it to those ready to embrace transformation. Nimruzir and his drowned court found themselves restored to life, but chained. They had become bridges between worlds, able to move between the depths and the surface as needed, carrying messages between the transformed realm below and the kingdoms above. The pearl crown upon Nimruzir's brow now gleamed with true light, rather than the false illumination of the corrupted Palantír. Damrod and Mablung, witness to their king's sacrifice, found themselves forever changed by what they had seen. When they returned to the surface, they bore within their minds the memory of the great music made manifest, and their words carried power to inspire and heal. They became the first of a new order of rangers, the Deep Warden, who kept watch for signs that the balance between creation and entropy might shift too far in either direction. Prince Imrahil, waiting above with the royal fleet, felt the moment when the transformation was complete. The black waters cleared to blue-green once more, and from the depths rose a song so beautiful that even the hardest-hearted sailors wept to hear it. It was Aragorn's voice, but changed, carrying harmonies that spoke of duty fulfilled and love transcendent. The Palantír of Anor, back in Minas Tirith, began to show new vision, not of distant places in Middle-earth alone, but of the connections between all things, the invisible threads that bound every living being to the great music. Future kings of Gondor would look into it and understand their true role, not as rulers imposing their will, but as servants of the harmony that held all creation together. In the years that followed, Middle-earth entered a new age, the age of the deep harmony. The barriers between worlds became permeable for those ready to cross them, while remaining solid for those who needed their protection. Children were born who could speak with the voices of wind and water, and the elves who had departed found they could return when they wished, bringing wisdom from the undying lands to enrich the mortal world. And in the depths of the sea, in the space between heartbeats, in the pause between one thought and the next, King Elisar continued his eternal watch. No longer mortal, yet not having abandoned mortality, he had become something new. The Eternal King, guardian of the balance that kept both order and chaos in their proper places, ensuring that the music of creation would play on until the end of all ages. The song he sang in those depths was heard by every child who ever wondered at the stars, every lover who ever pledged eternal devotion, every hero who ever chose duty over safety. It was the song of Middle-earth itself, and as long as that song continued, the world would endure, ever-changing yet ever-constant, a harmony of all voices raised in praise of existence itself. Thus ended the tale of the Palantír lost to the depths, though the song it began would echo through all the ages yet to come, wherever courage faced despair and hope challenged the darkness between the stars.